This video is brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino.
All right, it's Wednesday, and we all know the college football season is just 3 days away with kickoff Saturday at noon between Georgia Tech and Florida State in the first college football game of the 2024 season. Caps off Saturday night with SMU and Nevada. And we're going to talk about both of those games today. But we've got two choices when it comes to talking about those games. I'm going to tell you what those two choices are here in just a second. But first, shout out to BetUS. They've been kind enough to partner with the channel this year and sponsor today's video. Head on over to BetUS. The link is in the description down below. They've got a great bonus going on right now at the start of the season. They're going to give you a 125% bonus on your first three deposits. Not just your first deposit, but your first three. A 125% bonus up to $2,000. Make sure you check out BetUS. Help support the people that are helping to support the channel. The link is in the description down below. Click the link, check out BetUS. All right, now back to the two choices here. It's time to start doing these weekly prediction videos where I talk about some of the biggest games of the weekend. I give you my thoughts on them. We talk about the betting angle. We talk about who I think is going to win the game. So, you know, what might happen in the game. And of course, the best part, what would the funniest possible outcome be, right? Point and laugh. That's a big part of what we do here. So we got two choices in today's prediction video for Saturday's game, primarily the Florida State-Georgia Tech game, all right? Option one, I can sit here for 10 or 15 minutes and I can break down the game and I can give you the whole analytical deal and well, these players are back and these players left and Florida State's better than Georgia Tech here and this team's better than that team there. Basically the same video you can see a million other places, which to me is pretty boring, and it's about like sitting in a chair and watching a bowl of vanilla ice cream slowly melt over time. That's option number one, and I could do that. Or we can do option number two. All right, I guess what we'll do is maybe a little bit of both. But Georgia Tech and Florida State kick the football season off this Saturday at noon. I'm excited. I know all of you are too. If you're a college football fan, you're going to be watching this game. And who knows? Maybe we'll get a good game. Florida State, great year last year, won the SEC, finished 13-0 before losing to Georgia in the Orange Bowl, 13-1. Georgia Tech, not nearly as good of a year as Florida State, but relative to their expectations, they actually overachieved. They won 7 games. They made a bowl game for the first time in a while. And if they can manage to do that again this season, make a bowl game, it would be the first time since 2013 and 2014 that Georgia Tech makes bowl games in back-to-back years. Now, something interesting has gone on with this game over the last 3 or 4 days. If you are a sports bettor or you just follow the odds to know who's a favorite and who's an underdog, you may have noticed this over the last couple of days. But back to BetUS here. You can see on your screen, Georgia Tech is a 10.5-point underdog. That's what this number means right here. Florida State's basically favored to win the game by 10.5 points. That's what that means. These are betting numbers. This is how you bet on football, by using these numbers. What's interesting is that last week, Florida State was a 13 or a 13.5-point favorite, almost a 2-touchdown favorite. If you know anything at all about sports betting, then you know a line moving 3 or 4 points in a week is huge. That is a big, big move. That's a big line movement for 1 week in a game. And what that means is a lot of money in the last week has come in on Georgia Tech. That's the only thing that moves a line when it comes to sports betting, gambling, and odds, and who the favorite is. Not some individual's opinion. It's not somebody at BetUS or whatever sports book you're looking at that just decides out of the blue, we're going to change Florida State from a 13.5-point favorite to a 10.5. Money is what moves the lines. So the line gets put out on this game. It's at 13.5. Now it's at 10.5. What that means is that a bunch of money came in on Georgia Tech when the line was at 13.5. So BetUS, what do? They move the line down to 12. Money continues to come in on Georgia Tech. They move it down to 11. It was 11.5 last night when we looked. Now it's down to 10.5. So a lot of money has come in on Georgia Tech. Now, not necessarily to win the game, but to keep it closer, or more importantly, to keep it within this 10.5 number. I don't know what you might think. Maybe you think Florida State's going to blow them out. Maybe you think Georgia Tech's going to win the game outright. I don't know. That's not the point of what I'm mentioning here. It's just interesting. That's a big line movement. That's a big line movement in 1 week. So let's start with Florida State. Lost a lot off of last year's team. We know that. The quarterback is gone. The running back is gone. Top 2 wide receivers are gone. 10 players drafted to the NFL. Lost a bunch of key contributors on defense. We know all that. But there's a lot of returning talent at Florida State too. Norvell has built that team the way I think a team should be built, which is primarily through high school recruiting and then the portal to fill in holes and to supplement areas on your roster where maybe you're not where you think you need to be. And they've done a really good job of that, both high school recruiting and portal. And that continues to be the case now for Florida State. So they bring DJ Uiagalelei in at quarterback. Does he have the potential or the talent or the ceiling of Jordan Travis? No, he's got a much lower ceiling. But what he does have is a ton of college experience at the Power 5 or what we now call the Power 4 level. He was at Clemson for a couple of years, then he was at Oregon State. Now his third stop in the last 4 seasons, or last 3 seasons really, at Florida State in Tallahassee. And I don't think he's as good as Jordan Travis. I'm just going to tell you, he's not going to have the numbers. He's not going to have the year that Jordan Travis has. I don't even think Florida State expects him to do that. But he's going to have a lot of talent around him that he didn't have, particularly at Oregon State. Now, you can make a case about what he had to work with at Clemson versus what he's got here at Florida State, maybe. But way more talent at Florida State around him than what he had at Oregon State. So what they're looking for him to do is he doesn't have to go out and win every single game, particularly these types of games against inferior opponents. No shade to Georgia Tech there. Florida State's just much more talented than Georgia Tech. It's just a reality. Doesn't mean Georgia Tech can't win. We see the less talented team win all the time in college football. It's one of the reasons we love to watch, right? It's one of the reasons we love to watch. Upsets, unexpected outcomes, that kind of thing. But they don't need him to go out and single-handedly win this game or probably any game on their schedule. They're going to have a really good defense. They've got one of the best offensive lines in the ACC. And even though they lost their 2 top wide receivers and their tight end, Jaheim Bell, and Trey Benson at running back, they've backfilled that with high school recruiting talent that's been kind of waiting in the wings, plus transfer portal. Their backup running back last year, Tofalai or whatever his name is. Again, I don't name these people, so if I pronounce their name wrong, that's on them, not me. I don't know what he is, if he's Samoan or some type of what, I don't know, but Tofalai something. But he averaged, I think, 6.5 yards a carry basically last year in a backup role to Benson. I guess he'll be the primary guy. They also brought in a couple of transfer running backs, one from Alabama. So maybe like a running back by committee type deal. So is any one of those running backs likely to give them what Trey Benson gave them? Maybe not. But as a group, I think they can more than make that up. Wide receiver is a bigger concern for me for Florida State. Not that they don't have any good ones. They've got some good wide receivers, but they're mostly unproven or portal players. I don't think they have a wide receiver duo quite as good as they had last year with Coleman and Wilson. That doesn't mean anything as far as wins and losses. That doesn't mean they're going 6-6. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just comparing what they had to what they have now. Offensive line is a huge strength, I think, for Florida State, but the wide receivers are a question mark. The quarterback, to me, is not a question mark. It's an obvious step down. And the running backs, I think, will be okay as a group. Over on the defensive side of the ball, similar story. You lose Jared Verse and several other elite players that are now going to be playing in the NFL on Sundays. But you've got several players that are back from last year's team as well. So you've got some experienced talent there. Plus, you're supplementing that with players you brought in from the portal. Marvin Jones out of Georgia is a linebacker that I think could be really, really good at Florida State. Not really able to get on the field at Georgia. They're just loaded at the linebacker position. It's no fault of Marvin Jones. I think he could still be really, really good, and we'll see that this year at Florida State. They bring back 3 or 4 key contributors from last year's defense. I think defensively, that will be the strength for Florida State, the defensive side of the ball, particularly early in the season. Lots of new pieces on offense. And, in the game of football, a lot of times defenses are ahead of offenses early in the year. In the case of Florida State, I think this is going to particularly be the case because they've just got so many new pieces offensively that are learning new systems, new playbooks, new play calls, new quarterback throwing to all new wide receivers, chemistry, timing, all that kind of thing. It could take a couple of weeks to get worked out. It's a good thing if you're Florida State, you've got an elite defense that you can lean on over those first couple of weeks. All right, look at Georgia Tech. Last year, overachieved. Haynes King had a pretty good year numbers-wise. Now, turnovers is a separate issue, not just with Haynes King, but Georgia Tech in general. They turned the ball over way too much last year. Georgia Tech doesn't have near the talent to be able to overcome turnovers, especially when they're playing a more talented team like Florida State. They cannot turn the ball over in this game if they're going to have any chance of winning or probably even keeping it close. But when you look at Haynes King last year, I don't really think he gets the credit he deserves outside of Georgia Tech circles, but he had 2,700 yards passing and a bunch of touchdowns. He ran for another 700 yards and I think 10 more touchdowns on top of that. He had a really good year numbers-wise. Now, that their offensive line, we'll see how it holds up. Running backs, they bring back a 1,000-yard runner. They bring back a 1,000-yard running back, and they bring back their top 3 wide receivers from last year. So if I'm just looking at Georgia Tech and Florida State, and I'm trying to go, okay, whose offense do I think will be closer to clicking day one between the two, I'd go with Georgia Tech. There's more continuity in the Georgia Tech offense opening up the season than there is the Florida State offense. That doesn't mean that I think Georgia Tech's offense is better than Florida State's. I guess I would trust them more early in the season to sort of just know what's going on. Now, Florida State could have so much talent over there offensively that they overcome that. We'll see. Defensively, Georgia Tech's got to get a lot better along the lines of scrimmage. Some of the skill positions on the outside, I'm curious to see how they hold up against some of the wide receiver talent at Florida State in this game. But if Georgia Tech wants to keep this thing close, it's going to be kind of the same old cliches that you hear a lot, really, with underdogs trying to beat better teams, right? They can't turn the ball over. Can they maybe steal a possession through special teams, whether it's a blocked punt or field goal, or can they create some special teams points off of a block or some sort of kick return, right? And really the turning the ball over thing. They got to be able to run the ball, slow the game down, keep the ball out of the hands of DJ Ukulele and those talented Florida State offensive weapons over there, and see if they can kind of be in this thing, late into the third quarter, early into the fourth quarter. If they can keep this even within 2 touchdowns heading into the fourth quarter, then you're really a couple of plays away from maybe turning that thing around and trying to pull off the upset. Do I think that will happen? No, I don't. I think Georgia Tech's going to come up a little short in this game here. Now, I am going to take Georgia Tech in the points. In fact, I've already bet this game. I bet it a week or so ago when it was at 12 or 13. So I've got Georgia Tech plus the points betting-wise in this game. But I do think Florida State wins. And if Georgia Tech turns the ball over, it's going to I think it could get out of hand. So I think if you're taking Georgia Tech in the points, you got to cross your fingers and say, please don't turn the ball over. And hopefully they can run on the Florida State defense. If you're taking Florida State to cover, then you either think that they're so much more talented than Georgia Tech that they'll just overwhelm them and eventually win this game by 2 or 3 touchdowns, which would cover the 10.5. Or you think they're going to force some turnovers and the game sort of goes sideways that way. I'm hoping for a good game, I guess, as a college football fan. I don't know if that's biasing my pick here or not, but, when I watch any college football game not involving my favorite team, what I'm hoping for is a great game, right? I want this game to keep me interested through the fourth quarter. And if one team or the other is winning by 40 at halftime, then, that's just not the case. So I am hoping for a good game. I feel like the pressure is on Florida State here. Let's face it, the last time we saw Florida State play, they got beat by 60. The worst bowl beating in the history of bowl games. Georgia Tech, on the other hand, overachieved last year. This game kind of feels like a free roll for Georgia Tech. I don't know how many people are going to be laughing at Georgia Tech if they lose this game by 10 or 14 points, right? Whereas if Florida State were to lose this game, or even if they win by 3 or 4, it feels like people are going to be going, uh-oh, what's wrong with Florida State, right? And that brings us to option number 2, where we take a little bit of a different approach. You know what I like about Florida State and Georgia Tech? That's right. Not a damn thing. Nothing. Well, what's there to like? Yeah, I honestly feel bad for Georgia Tech fans. I'm serious. The 3 or 4 that exist. The 3 or 4 Georgia Tech fans that actually exist, from what I can tell, seem to really care about not just Georgia Tech football, but all of the sports and all that stuff. They're like, they're all in on Georgia Tech athletics. And
it's a shame to have a fan base with 4 or 5 fans that feel that way, but an administration that just couldn't care less. And that remains the biggest problem with Georgia Tech. Oh, they won 7 games. I want you to think about how excited, positive, optimistic, whatever, that the Georgia Tech fans you've seen on the internet this offseason are. It is unbelievable. And then remind yourself that they won 7 games last year. 7. Now, a lot of us watching this video, if our teams won 7 games, we want the coach fired. They want to give this guy a raise and build him a statue for winning 7 games. Now, okay, yeah, he won a game or 2 more, I guess, than what most people thought they would win last year. But are you really comfortable with that Miami win? I mean, did Georgia Tech beat Miami? Or did Miami just lose that one? I mean, but here's the thing with the administration, and this hasn't been a secret. I've talked about it before. And Georgia Tech fans, some of them have agreed with me on this in the past. Now all of a sudden they're excited again, so some of them are changing their tune. But the administration at Georgia Tech couldn't care less about football or any of the athletics that go on there. It's underfunded. The facilities are dilapidated too. Google dilapidated if you need to. But like Bobby Dodd Stadium, for example, first of all, Bobby Dodd is the oldest, I guess they don't call it Division I. What do they call it? FBS? Bobby Dodd is the oldest FBS Power 4 stadium in the country. And if you've ever been there, it feels that way. It is falling apart. It's uncomfortable. The concourse areas where in most stadiums you have like the concession areas and the bathrooms and things like that are literally like hallways. I mean, you can stand in the concourse of Georgia Tech and touch both walls at the same time. It's a pitiful fucking stadium. Their sound system, I shit you not, I took Lou Jr. to a game there a few years ago when Georgia was playing, 2019 maybe? 2018 or 2019, I don't know. Anyway, point is, I took Lou Jr. up there to a game because they were giving tickets away. But nobody goes to Georgia Tech games, by the way. The only game they ever sell out is the Georgia game, and that's because Georgia fans can drive an hour to be in Atlanta. That's it. But anyway, for reasons unknown, I decided to take Lou Jr. to a Georgia Tech game a few years ago. And I shit you not, we had corner seats, lower level. Their sound system was literally a DJ in the back of the end zone. I said, this is unbelievable. Unbelievable. No PA system. When the referees would announce a penalty, there's no speakers for them to talk through. There's no public address announcer. Nothing. It's literally a DJ in the corner of the end zone playing like Baby Got Back and other dumb shit from the 90s. It was fucking weird. And it's because they don't have any money. And they don't have any money because the administration refuses to support Georgia Tech athletics and football in particular. The stadium is an absolute joke. For those of you that are my age, you remember Radio Shack? Or how about Roses? What else? Circuit City. Bobby Dodd Stadium is the Circuit City of college football stadiums. It's empty. It's basically out of business. It's a failure. And people just aren't interested in it anymore. And I don't know how long Georgia Tech's going to continue this charade, which is Ethiopian for charade, that they're a Power 4 program, but they're not. I don't want the ACC to go away, just like I didn't want the Pac-12 to go away. I'm sort of a college football traditionalist in a lot of respects, and I didn't like to see the Pac-12 go away, and I don't want to see the ACC go away. But I'll tell you this, if they do, Georgia Tech better be on its knees praying to whoever that the ACC doesn't go away. Because if it does, no one's taking Georgia Tech. Nobody's taking Georgia. Who's going to take Georgia? Please tell me the Big Ten is not going to take Georgia Tech. What, the Big 12? Georgia Tech, I have nowhere to go. There's just no buy-in from the administration. There's no interest in Georgia Tech outside of Georgia Tech itself. It's not a national brand. It's not. No one cares about that fucking Matchbox Model T that y'all trot out onto the field or whatever before the game. It's just a terrible football team and a terrible program. And like I said, I do feel bad for the 4 or 5 fans that are out there because they're diehard, and for whatever reason, they've been tricked into being optimistic. It's sad to see. Now, Florida State, holy shit. I don't know if there's a team right now more hated than Florida State. Honestly, I don't know if there's a team more hated than I don't remember the last time I saw a team more hated than Florida State. There wasn't winning anything. It's not unusual for a team that starts winning a lot to become a hated team, right? People where you hate on Alabama or people hate on the Yankees when they were winning all the World Series, or now they hate on the Chiefs because they're winning the Super, whatever. The Cowboys when they were good, whatever. Teams become dominant, a dynasty, whatever you want to call it. Not at all uncommon for that to become like not only the most popular team, but the most hated team. Well, Florida State's getting all the negative without any of the positive, right? They're not the most popular team. It's not even close. Chad, look at their TV contract. Nobody wants to watch them play. Nobody watches the AC. Let's wait on that. We'll get to the contract. We'll get to the ACC contract in a minute. But so Florida State gets all the hate without any of the positive, right? They're not a popular team nationwide, and they're not winning anything. Usually you have to win anything to accumulate haters. So why are people running around? Maybe hate's not the right word, but there sure are a lot of people that want to see Florida State lose a lot, aren't there? Yeah, there are. Why? Biggest bunch of crybabies the football world has ever seen, internet-wise. I'm trying to think if there's another fan base that has cried. There's been a few instances here and there. You had some Ohio State fans that couldn't get over the Peach Bowl, I guess, from a couple of years ago. But that pales in comparison. The amount of crying, wailing, gnashing of teeth that has gone on from the Florida State fans from December of last year to now is absolutely unbelievable. I give you the first 30, 60, even 90 days, all right? You got snubbed out of the playoffs. It sucks. I said it a million times, but any of us watching this video, if our team was a 13-0 power at the time, 5 conference champion, and we didn't get into the playoffs, we too would have been pissed off. There's nothing wrong with that in and of itself. But you people have dragged this on month after month after month after month after month. Now it's conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory about Kirk Herbstreit and Reese Davis and the SEC and ESPN and the fucking boogeyman hiding under your bed. And you guys are, you walk down the street and you're scared Kirk Herbstreit's going to jump out behind a bush and yell boogity, 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 or whatever the fuck it is. Y'all, everything is Kirk Herbstreit's fault. Nothing counts now all of a sudden. It's like, nope, that doesn't count. The Orange Bowl doesn't count. This doesn't count. That doesn't count. You played the game. It counts. You lost by 60. You lost by 60. I get it. You don't want to face that reality. You want to wish that game didn't count. It counted. It was played. No sanctions have been levied against either team in regards to that game, so it counted. Speaking of sanctions, you're winless against Alabama, which is hilarious. Well, we beat Alabama. No, you didn't. You vacated that win. See, that's an example of a game not counting. Florida State, man. When you cheat, when you play ineligible players, when you break the rules, when you do whatever it is that gets you in the crosshairs of the NCAA, and they investigate you, and you agree to the findings, and you self-impose the vacated wins. Florida State self-imposed those vacated wins. That's what it looks like for a game not to count. Your pretend win over Alabama from all those years ago and every other win you had that year because, well, Bobby Bowden was a cheater and he got caught. And Florida State admitted it. They copped to it. They self-imposed the sanction of vacated wins. That's what it looks like for a game not to count. You lined up in the Orange Bowl and went out there and got your asshole exploded on national television in front of God and everybody else. And there have been no investigations of that, although there probably should. That had to be assault at the very least. Rape is more likely. But as of yet, no investigation into that game, no NCAA finding, and no vacated win from that game. So that game counts. So there's a long line of people waiting to watch Florida State lose. Will it be this Saturday against Georgia Tech? No, no. Florida State's not going to lose to Georgia Tech, I don't think. I think Florida State will beat them. Could it be closer than some people think? Yeah, it could. Week 0 game, first game of the season. Game ones in general can be hard to judge sometimes. Florida State does have a lot of new pieces offensively. How quickly will the offense get going with a new quarterback, couple of new running backs, a bunch of brand new wide receivers, right? We'll see. Georgia Tech's not a great team. As mentioned, they did a little bit better last year, maybe than people expected. But the reality is they're a mid-level team at best when it comes to power college football right now. They just are. Offensively, they played okay last year, and Haynes King had an okay year, not stats-wise, but he's an absolute turnover machine. Didn't he have 17 interceptions or something? Jesus, Haynes King. My God. I need to change his name to Fruit of the Loom King. Because he shit his pants 17 times, like 17 interceptions. What a mighty man. Florida State's defense, I think, will probably just be too much in the end. I don't think Georgia Tech will be able to score enough points to win the game. Can they keep it close? Can they cover the spread? Maybe. We'll see. I'm hoping for a close game because that's what you want to see when you're watching a game not involving your favorite team. But yeah, so would it be hilarious for Florida State to lose? Yeah, it would. I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening. But eventually Florida State will lose, and boy, people are waiting on it. People are waiting on it because you people have done nothing but embarrass yourselves over the last 6 to 8 months with all of this Orange Bowl and playoff snub and poor, pitiful me. And everybody hates us. Everybody's out to get us. The ESPN hates us. The SEC hates us. The SEC Network hates us. ABC hates us. Disney hates us. Kirk Herbstreit hates us. Reese Davis hates us. Just this never-ending list of boogeymen that you people have lived the last 8 months of your life scared to death of. Making death threats to Kirk Herbstreit on Twitter. Like, Kirk Herbstreit doesn't give a fuck about you. What is wrong with you? Some of you people are grown. And you're out here with death threats to Kirk Herbstreit. He's not even on the fucking committee. Nobody from ESPN is on the committee, but we don't get into that. That explodes y'all's brain every time I bring that up. The fucking head of the playoff committee was the athletic director at NC State. An ACC team. Did y'all silly ass fucking circus tent blow away in a thunderstorm a couple of months ago? Is that true? I saw pictures on the internet. You want to talk about a blessing in disguise. You want to talk about addition by subtraction. For those of you that believe, they say the Lord works in mysterious ways. Well, the Lord could have used weather to rid you of that embarrassment of a big top. What in the fuck are y'all doing running a circus school down there in 2024? I get it maybe 40 years ago, 50 years ago, when you were an all-girls school and maybe you needed to train some trapeze type people or something. But what in the absolute fuck are y'all doing down there in the state capital of Florida running a goddamn circus school with a fucking tent and everything? Trapeze, fucking shooting midgets out of cannons for no goddamn reason? The fuck is wrong with y'all? Jesus Christ, juggling 101? What in the hell? Clowning? Please explain to me how clowning is a fucking major. If clowning was a major, I'd have 1,000,000 fucking degrees. I've been clowning you for 8 fucking months. I didn't have to go to school to do it, and I definitely didn't have to go to school in some fucking circus big top in the middle of shit-stained Florida, Tallahassee. You know what it is? It's an old engine curse. That's why you didn't make the playoffs. It ain't got nothing to do with ESPN and that. It's circus voodoo and an old engine curse. You guys down there, apparently there's engines everywhere in the state of Florida because there's a whole bunch of Indian land down there, I guess, because you got engine casinos down there. And Florida State can't be bothered. They got a white kid. They literally pluck a white kid out of a fraternity every year, paint his happy ass up like fucking Tonto. Put him up on that goddamn show pony, slap his ass, send him out onto the field with a flaming fucking toothpick. Why? And then y'all give that fucking white boy a scholarship for that? God almighty, man. There's Indians all over the place that can't read or whatever else that would love to have a scholarship to a place like Florida State. Get a real Indian, man. It can't be that hard. It cannot be that hard to find an actual Native American to put up on that goddamn horse. Why y'all insist on plucking some rich, blonde-headed frat kid out of whatever fucking frat house he's passed out in and putting his ass up on a show pony after painting him up like he's a fucking 8-year-old on Halloween from the 70s, fucking lighting a toothpick on fire and sending his ass out in the middle of Doak Campbell? I don't understand that shit at all. Then they say, oh, that's one of the best entrances of college football. What you're doing is cool. Who's doing it is ridiculous. What are y'all doing? What are y'all doing? I don't think you know what you're doing. I don't think you know what you're doing. Florida State. Y'all might want to look back into that all-girls thing because it's not working out for y'all right now. Bobby Bowden finished in the top 5 for 18 years. Oh, yeah, Bobby Bowden was great. Bobby Bowden was a great coach. Of course, y'all ran him out of town on a rail for Jimbo fucking Fisher. But anyway, now that's neither here nor there for the purposes of this conversation. Bobby Bowden was great. He was the head coach at Florida State for how long? Was it 34 years? No. Was it? Can't be, because he only won 2 national titles. No, I'm just kidding. Winning 2 national titles in 34 years is good. I'm actually proud of Florida State for that. I really am. 2 national titles in 34 years is an accomplishment y'all should be proud of. I'm dead serious. I'm not even going to clown on that. That's got to be hard to do. For one coach to win 2 national titles in 34 years, that's got to be really, really hard to do. And I think that puts Bobby Bowden up near the top of college football coaches, top 15, 20 college football coaches of all time, doesn't it? 2 national titles? And it only took him 34 years at Florida State to win those 2 national titles? That's pretty good. That's pretty good. 2 in 34 years. It's pretty good. Georgia Tech versus Florida State. Unfortunately, they can't both lose. So, Georgia Tech, looks like this one's on you, bud.